In this video, we're gonna have a look at the Winsor Newton set of 6 cool gray brush markers and how they blend on marker and print paper, how they compare in price to other markers, and basically, are they any good? So let's jump in. Now, before we get into the sketching part, just make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. That way you get notified when new videos are uploaded every single week. I'm making a video. You can't climb up my leg like that. Go to your brother over there. I'm the Sketch Monkey, and in this video we're gonna have some fun with a couple of new toys that I just got, which are the Winsor Newton brush markers in cool gray. So what we're gonna be doing today is we're gonna use these on both sketch paper, regular sketch paper, which is this right here, Strathmore Sketchbook, and for the marker paper I'm using the Excel series by Canson. And we're gonna go through the blending technique, the blending capabilities of this, the two brush sides, the fine tip and the broad brush. I always recommend starting out with cool grays if you're new to sketching, because the simple fact that this is all you need. The cool gray range, you basically need 3 to start with. So you can start with the number 2, 4, or number 2, 6 in black. And with that, you can create a lot of different shades, because you can use the big pen to fill in some shades to make it darker, for example. And you're not distracted by the color of the marker. You're using gray, which makes you focus more on the shading part and practicing that instead of being distracted by any colors. So what do we have in this set? We have the cool gray 1, we have the cool gray 2, 3, 4, 5, and black, which I think is good. It's kind of weird that they don't include anyone from any range from 6 to 10. 6 to 9, I guess it is. 10 is black. But the thing is, you can use 5, just as I mentioned, you can use 5 and create those shades by going over it several times with marker number 5. And if you go over it several times on marker paper, you're gonna get a darker, darker, and darker tone, almost all the way to black. And you can also use the big pen to fill in those shades to get it even darker. And black is obviously a must-have in these sets. So let's open these up and see how they look. Alright, so when we look at the design of these brushes, they remind me very much of the Pro markers, which I have right here. As you can see, they are basically the same design. The only difference that I can see is that this anti-roll dot, or whatever you want to call it, right here is moved further down on the cap of the fine tip, and on Pro markers you have them further up in the middle of the cap. But that's basically the only difference I can see. The brushes are supposed to be the same, at least in design. In function, we're gonna find out just in a minute. Other than that, I like it. It's a very clean looking marker, not very much to it. It doesn't roll since it has the anti-roll dot design on the cap, and the caps are pretty easy to take off and on. There's not too much of a resistance to them. Maybe this one has, usually, I don't know why, but the fine tip usually has more resistance to them, to the cap, than the broad chiseled end of the marker on most markers that I have. I don't know why that is, but it's worth noting. So let's jump in and see how these perform on sketch paper. Alright, so first of all, I just want to get a feel for the markers and how they, basically how they feel on paper. So I'm just going to take a few of them. These are stuck together for some reason because the label came off. But I'm going to start with a cool gray 4 with the broad brush and just get a feel for how these perform on paper. So the first impressions are pretty normal, nothing too unusual about these markers, but here we go. This is very cool. So normally the markers that I've tried before have a very solid fine tip, so it's almost like a fine liner. You can't bend them very well. I'm going to try and show you the difference with this here that I just noticed. It's a really flexible fine tip on this, which is really cool if you're doing illustrations and stuff like that. So you can go from a very fine line to just adding more pressure and get a darker line like that, or a thicker line, which is unusual for markers like this. One big issue with alcohol markers is that they tend to smear big pens and big lines. So we're gonna do a test here. I'm gonna put out some lines like this, and keep in mind that this is print paper. And then I'm gonna go over these with the Cool Gray 4 in the complete opposite direction and see if they smear a lot or not. So far, what I can tell, what I can see here is that it doesn't really smear that much. It's actually very good. I think these are probably the best markers yet that I've tried when it comes to going over the big lines with them. And these are alcohol based, so they should kind of smear them, but I guess they have some magic formula in the ink or something that makes it not smear that much, which is really good. So let's try to shade on print paper. So let's make a lip. Sorry about that, my voice is going. I'm gonna need more coffee. So I'm gonna go in with the Cool Gray 2, if I can find that right here. And I'm gonna see how well these blend on print paper. So I'm gonna make an ellipse like this and have the light source kind of coming straight on from where I'm looking. So the lightest point is gonna be in the middle of this ellipse. So as you can see, if you just have a few markers, you can still get some cool shades with Cool Grays or whatever shade range of one color you have. This is just one marker, and that's basically it. I don't need more than this to visualize what it is I'm sketching, but for the purpose of trying to blend these, we're gonna go into Cool Gray 5 now and see how these blend together. So let's see where the 5 is right here. The chisel tip, on the other hand, so if we had the fine tip on these being very flexible, the chisel tip is super hard on this. As you can see, if I don't hit the paper with the full width of the brush, it's not gonna be very forgiving and give you the flexibility of hitting the entire surface of it. You really need to press the marker down to get the full benefit of the chisel tip. Alright, I'm gonna jump back to Cool Gray 2 now, try to blend these two. So I would say it's pretty hard to blend these markers on print paper because they tend to dry very fast. I did change between the markers super quickly there, but still I didn't manage to get the blending right. So that's worth thinking of if you're mostly using print paper and you really want to be able to blend well. Then these markers, then you might have some difficulty doing that with these kind of markers. But if you've seen my videos, I kind of like it when it gets messy like this and it's not 100% clean blending, because for me it adds to the value of the sketch and it makes it more sketchy, which I like, and more dirty. So the final test for these markers on this kind of paper is going to be, I'm going to go through the entire range for you so you can see what Cool Gray 1 looks like. And we're now moving to Cool Gray 2. And Cool Gray 3. That's interesting. Cool Gray 3 basically looks like Cool Gray 2. It's not a big difference between those two there. Let's see Cool Gray 4. And finally, Cool Gray 5. I'm going to do the black as well. The black to me looks like a cool gray 8 or 9, not 100% black. I would use this as a cool gray 9. So if we add black to this, you can see the difference here. This right here is a black fine liner. You can see that there's a shade difference there. So think about that. The black, I guess, is not 100% black. If you want full contrast in your sketches, that's something that's worth thinking about. All right, now let's try this exercise, but on marker paper, and then see the difference. So first of all, let's get a feel for how this works on marker paper. So I'm gonna use the same cool gray 4 as I started with on the other one. And immediately I can feel that the marker is way more forgiving on the chisel tip than it was on print paper. On print paper, it's very hard to get a smooth the cool gray doesn't really apply very smoothly on print paper, but on marker paper it seems to be a lot easier to get those smooth lines going. Same with the fine tip here, and the same thing here. You can go from very fine tip to press down and get a broader tip, which I really love. That's a big benefit with these markers, I think, in comparison to pretty much every other marker that I have. So moving on to the Bic test, let's see. Usually on marker paper, the Bic lines tend to bleed a lot more than if you use regular print paper. So this is gonna be interesting to see how these perform when I go over them on marker paper. Actually, I get the same result here. So as you can see, it doesn't bleed that much, and really unusual for alcohol-based markers. So that's a really big plus for this set. And if we move on to the blending, which should, I mean, since we're using marker paper, it should be a lot easier to blend these since they're alcohol-based. So we shouldn't have a problem doing that. And you can see that it's a lot smoother on marker paper. Maybe too smooth for my taste. I don't really like it when it feels like I'm sketching on ice or something like that. I like to have the friction of regular cheap paper when I sketch. And as I said before, I also like the sketchiness of it. And when things look too perfect, it just gets boring. So that's my opinion, but we're gonna start to blend this with the cool gray 5 I think we used, right? So the thing with marker paper is that it doesn't dry that fast as if you were to sketch on print paper. And if it dries, you can go back in and just add marker to it, and it will start to blend again and get liquefied. But you can't really do that on print paper, because once it's dry, it's kind of sucked into the paper, and it's gonna make it really hard to go back in and blend it. But marker paper, a lot more forgiving when it comes to that. And as you can see, it blends pretty well. Not the best kind of blending capabilities of the markers that I have tried before, but I guess it works. It depends on, it's a matter of taste too, I guess. Alright, so I'm gonna go in now and do the full range as we did on the print paper to show you all the shades of gray that we have and how they look on marker paper. So here we have cool gray 1. Moving on to cool gray 2. I'm using the chisel tip for this, or the broad brush. 3 looked kind of the same as number 2, and it still does. I really can't see the difference, tell the difference between 2 and 3 here. So in my opinion, number 3 or 2 are, you don't really need them, I guess, because they're the same marker. Move it on to number 4. Number 5. Right here. And then the XB, which I suppose is supposed to be black although it's not 100% black. And then we have, I'm going to show you as a reference just how black would look like on marker paper, which is like this. And you can see the big difference between the Winsor Newton black and proper black with a fine liner like that. So, conclusion, what I think about these markers, the positive things are definitely the brush the brush tip, which is actually a brush tip. You can use it it's very flexible, and you can use it to I think it comes in handy when you do illustrations and stuff like that, and you want to use one pen. So if you use lighter pressure on the brush, it's gonna obviously give you a thinner line. And then if you want to go in and add some depth or line weight to your sketches, all you got to do is just press harder, and you're gonna get one of these thicker lines there. So that's a positive. That, I would say, is the main benefit, and the main way these markers separate themselves from other markers is the fine tip of the marker itself and the flexibility of it. The cons, as you can see here, 2 and 3 are very, very similar, and the black isn't really 100% black. So keep that in mind when if you plan on getting these markers, that you might want to have a different marker that is 100% black that you've already tried. And the blending capabilities are not the best. And as you can see here, comparison between the print paper and the, I'm gonna put it like this so you can see the whole pages. So here we have the sketch paper. I think they're all in frame. You have the sketch paper here and the marker paper here. The main difference being that you can see the strokes more clearly on print paper, which is totally expected. And that the blending on marker paper is obviously a lot easier, and I can even go back into this right now if I want to loosen this up by adding a blend marker or a white marker to just start blending this again, and I can't really do that on print paper. Also, another positive thing that I forgot to mention is the big lines, that they don't smear, which is a totally surprise to me, because these are alcohol based, as I've mentioned before. And they should kind of smear the big lines, but the only markers that I've tried before that don't smear the big lines is the chart pack markers. But the problem with those is that you need to wear a gas mask when you're sketching with them, because otherwise you're gonna get all kinds of dizzy and eventually pass out from the smell of it. And finally, when it comes to price point, these are not the cheapest markers that you can find, but I think they're worth it if you really need a flexible brush tip on the marker. Compared to Copics, for example, these are about 20 to 24 for a 6-pack dollars, US dollars, and Copics are about 30 or 32 or something like that. So there is a bit, about $5-6 in difference there, and it's all a matter of taste. I mean, I could sketch with these all day. It doesn't really matter for me, as long as the most important thing for me is the color correctness of the cap and the color or shade that actually comes out of the marker. If that's totally off, that means that the markers are really bad and I would not use them. Otherwise than that, I'm totally fine with having this brush strokes visible like this. I don't mind that, so that's totally a matter of taste. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm the Sketch Monkey, and if you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you hated it, hit the dislike button. And if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. I'm gonna make a lot more videos like this as usual. And I hope to see you next time. Take it easy, guys.